What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman, who at one point in time simultaneously held the WBC and the WBA titles before losing one after his 2017 March Showdown unification bout with two-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer Danny Swift Garcia. Keith Thurman went on a 2-year hiatus where the WBC World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman and the board decided that they were going to remove Keith Thurman as their champion due to inactivity. Then Keith Thurman, in July 2019, he fought legendary 8th Division World Champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, and he lost a majority decision in his WBA title. But with that said, Keith Thurman, he made his comeback after that 2-year hiatus after losing to Manny Pacquiao February 5th, this past Saturday, and he won against former WBA junior welterweight regular champion Mexican star boxer Mario Barrios. Unanimous decision, but Keith Thurman showed vulnerabilities. Keith Thurman has fought 3 times in 5 years, inactivity, and starting to show ring rust, and Keith Thurman is starting to show vulnerabilities more and more. He was hurt badly by Josito Lopez in his first comeback after the hiatus against Danny Garcia in 2017. He came back in 2019, January of 2019. He fought Josito Lopez. He was vulnerable in that fight, was badly hurt, looked like he was on the verge of getting stopped. Then Keith Thurman, he fought Manny Pacquiao in July. He got dropped in the first round. Then in the 10th round, he was badly hurt again to the body. It looked like he was on the verge of getting stopped in that fight. Then he comes back and he fights Mario Barrios 2.5 years later, and he gets hurt to the body twice against Mario Barrios in similar fashion he did against Manny Pacquiao. But Keith Thurman admitted that Mario Barrios just didn't have the skill set, the athletic ability to close the gap, and he probably would have dropped him, is what Keith Thurman stated. So he's admitting his vulnerability. So with that said, Keith Thurman obviously is trying to stay active. He's trying to put himself back in the title contention. He's trying to put himself back at the top. He was once considered the best welterweight in the world. Okay, so Keith Thurman is now, looking to put himself back in title contention and back at the top of the welterweight division. But there's 2 guys at the top of the welterweight division. One being undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in Earl the Truth Spence Jr. 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 21 big wins by way of knockout, 31 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. With that said, Errol Spence is accompanied by WBA welterweight world champion Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas, 27 wins, 4 losses, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 69-inch arm reach. They'll be squaring off against one another in a massive unification bout with 3 belts on the line, April 16th, Arlington, Texas, at Dallas Cowboy AT&T Stadium. With that said, there's another champion at the top, undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terrence Bud Crawford. Okay, now Terrence Crawford, 38 wins, no losses, no draws, 29 big wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. What's interesting about this topic and this conversation we're getting ready to have is that Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence have both been seeking out fights with Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman has been seemingly reluctant to accept these challenges. But Keith Thurman is doing a lot of interviews. Keith Thurman is seen more and more, and Keith Thurman, he weighs in on 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer, who's currently the undisputed super middleweight world champion and widely considered by many to be the face of the sport of boxing, top 3, if not #1 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in Saul Canelo Alvarez. 57 wins, no loss, 57 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws, 39 big wins by way of knockout, 31 years of age, 5'8" with a 70-inch arm reach. Canelo Alvarez, he just became undisputed super middleweight, first to do so in the history of sport of boxing when he defeated former IBF super middleweight world champions Caleb Sweethand Plant That was November 5th of 2021. Canelo Alvarez also became the first Mexican-born fighter to hold all 4 major sanctioned belts and the Ring Magazine and linealship simultaneously at one time since the WBO has become a major sanctioned body. So with that said, Keith Thurman, he weighs in on a choice of opponent by Canelo Alvarez. And Keith Thurman, he goes in. He says that Canelo Alvarez has learned from his 2013-2014 showdown with legendary retired Hall of Fame iconic superstar boxer Floyd Money Mayweather, who retired 50-0. They fought in a massive showdown, and Floyd Mayweather dominated Manny Pacquiao, winning essentially every single round. And Keith Thurman is saying that Canelo Alvarez is cherry picking, and that Canelo Alvarez, he's learned this strategy, and he's strategically doing it because he picked this up from Floyd Mayweather. Now, Keith Thurman was looking to seek out a fight with Floyd Mayweather for quite some time. He was seen as the new face of the welterweight division to take over for Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao when they exited the division. Keith Thurman became Floyd Mayweather's WBA mandatory challenger, but obviously at that gesture and that time in Floyd Mayweather's career, Floyd Mayweather didn't have to fight any mandatories. Floyd Mayweather was already well accomplished. It wasn't even a thought in the mind of Floyd Mayweather to fight mandatories. Floyd Mayweather was already above the belt. His status. If he had belts, it wasn't because he was seeking out the belts. It was just because his opponent happened to have a belt. Okay, so he was always looking for the opponents coming off the biggest wins, whether they had a belt or not. If they had a belt, he happened to pick up the belt, okay? He's fought more world champions in the history of sport of boxing than any other boxer. And so with that said, Keith Thurman was the mandatory challenger, and Keith Thurman was vying for an opportunity to face off against Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd Mayweather, he gave Keith Thurman an ultimatum. He told Keith Thurman, if you truly want to fight me, go ahead and fight Errol Spence Jr. You beat Errol Spence Jr., and I'll give you the opportunity, and I'll face you. I'll guarantee you the opportunity to fight next. Keith Thurman, he felt that he was being trapped. So Keith Thurman, he stated that he didn't take the option. He didn't take the offer. Well, that's on Keith Thurman not to take the offer, because Floyd Mayweather has always been a man of his word when it came to situations like that. He gave Canelo Alvarez the opportunity when Canelo Alvarez was vying for an opportunity to fight him, and he told Canelo Alvarez, go ahead and fight your fellow undefeated world champion in your division in southpaw superstar boxer Austin Trout, who Austin Trout at the time, he held, I believe, the WBO title, and Canelo Alvarez held the WBC, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe Austin Trout held the IBF. Not sure what belt Austin Trout had at the time, but Austin Trout was another champion, and he was considered to be, one of the best junior welterweights in the world. Top two, him and Canelo Alvarez. So Floyd Mayweather, he told Canelo Alvarez, if you fight Austin Trout and beat Austin Trout, I'll guarantee you an opportunity to fight me immediately. Canelo Alvarez took him up on the offer. He fought and beat Austin Trout, unified the division, and his very next fight was Floyd Mayweather. He gave Keith Thurman the same ultimatum, the same opportunity, and Keith Thurman declined because he didn't want to fight Errol Spence Jr. And Keith Thurman, he admitted that he declined this opportunity to fight Errol Spence to be able to fight Floyd Mayweather. And Floyd Mayweather also gave the same opportunity to Showtime Sean Porter, two-time welterweight world champion, superstar boxer. If you fight and beat Errol Spence, then I'll gladly fight you immediately after. Floyd Mayweather was at a point in his career where he wanted to fight the absolute best they had to offer, okay? The biggest name fights for the biggest amount of money for the biggest pay-per-view events. Keith Thurman did not represent that. In order for Keith Thurman to get that opportunity, he needed Keith Thurman to fight and beat somebody of huge stature, okay? And that's why Floyd Mayweather understood that Errol Spence was starting to garner a lot of traction because of the glorified sparring session that he had with Errol Spence, in which Errol Spence was had given him a black eye, and it was a well unkept secret that Errol Spence was giving Floyd Mayweather tons of problems in sparring, blackened his eye, and Errol Spence also, was kicked out of Floyd Mayweather gym by Floyd Mayweather Sr. that wasn't happy. This was ahead, I believe, of Floyd Mayweather fight with Robert Ghost Guerrero, if I'm not mistaken, or Victor Ortiz. Okay, it might have been the Victor Ortiz fight, and so he gave Floyd Mayweather a black eye in that training session, and he got a lot of recognition, and a lot of people started to his name started to gain traction. So Floyd Mayweather, he stated that to Keith Thurman, you fight Errol Spence and beat Errol Spence, and then I'm gonna give you the opportunity. Keith Thurman turned it down. He admitted that this was the case, okay, on numerous occasions. So Keith Thurman has admitted this to be the truth. So now he's saying that he wants Canelo Alvarez to stop cherry picking, stop taking the road of Floyd Mayweather. Well, it's ironic because Keith Thurman had a big fight on his hands with Errol Spence even after that situation with Floyd Mayweather and Keith Thurman and Errol Spence, when Errol Spence defeated former IBF welterweight world champion, British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook to become a world champion for the first time. Errol Spence fought Kell Brook in the UK, and he beat Kell Brook in the UK for his first world title opportunity in front of 60,000 fans in hostile environment, okay? And after that, Errol Spence, he called out Keith Thurman. He wanted to unify against Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman refused to take the option. He refused to take the bait, okay? And Keith Thurman, he stated that he misjudged the situation because he thought that Errol Spence was going to represent his Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather moment. He wanted to let the fight marinate, was his reasoning for never fighting Errol Spence Jr., okay? So Keith Thurman didn't take that fight with Errol Spence Jr. Then, after that, Keith Thurman, he stated that when he was going to have a comeback after his hiatus, it was not going to be against Errol Spence or any of the top welterweights. It was going to be a get-back year where he was just going to fight a bunch of tune-up fights. That didn't even take place, but he let the world know he was going to take tune-up fights and not fight the best opposition that there was to offer. Errol Spence came back a 14-month layoff after suffering a horrific car accident and fought one of the best welterweights in the world in Danny Garcia straight away, okay? Keith Thurman, he vowed not to fight the top welterweights coming off of his what he called get back year, okay? And he didn't even have the get back year to begin with. So with that said, Keith Thurman also had the opportunity right now presents himself to fight Terrence Crawford. He raised his hand after Terrence Crawford November 20th showdown with two-time welterweight world champion, rival, and former foe of Keith Thurman's, Sean Porter. And he dropped Sean Porter twice in the 10th round and ultimately did something that's never been done. He stopped Sean Porter. Sean Porter's father, trainer, manager, Kenny Porter, saw enough and waved the white towel. And so with that said, Terrence Crawford was victorious. He did something not Keith Thurman, not Errol Spence, nobody has done. And Keith Thurman, he waved his hand and said he'll fight Terrence Crawford in 8 months on schedule of what has been normal for him after his first hiatus, 2-year hiatus, 2017 to 2019. He fought Josito Lopez in January. Then he fought Manny Pacquiao in July. Well, he was fighting Mario Barrios in February, February 5th, that's close to January. And 8 months would mark, July date, okay? And so he could fight Terrence Crawford in July. Well, Keith Thurman is now stating that Terrence Crawford is a business move. He's the WBC, World Boxing Council, and the president, Mauricio Suleiman, decided to make Keith Thurman for no reason and Mario Barrios a title eliminator fight. So he's stating that now he wants to go the road of the WBC, mandatory position to fight the winner, Errol Spence, Dana Sugas. Although the WBC has let it be known clearly he won't be the mandatory for the winner, which the biggest fight in the sport of boxing is Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. But Terrence Crawford is free. Errol Spence is fighting Dana Sugas in April, which means he won't fight again till March, April, May, June, at least July, okay? So if that to be the case. Now, Errol Spence stated he wanted to fight 3 more times. So should he be victorious, he'll fight in July again, if that, maybe in the fall. So that gives Keith Thurman time to make a deal and fight Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is a free agent, network promotional free agent. He's not with top-ranked Bob Arum and ESPN anymore. So Keith Thurman, he's starting to talk about it's business with Terrence Crawford now. It has to make the most business sense. It has to be lucrative enough. It's about money now. But at the same time, you're challenging Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather, saying that they cherry pick their way to preserve themselves and their status at the top. But you are doing the exact same thing. Because right now, if you're not trying to cherry pick and you're not trying to preserve your status at the top, well, then Keith Thurman should be eager to jump in the ring with Terrence Crawford, who's a world champion. Don't sit around and wait for Errol Spence, your Dana Zugas winner. Go ahead and push for the Terrence Crawford fight, where Terrence Crawford has the title and he's considered the best fighter in the world. So it should be easy to get done. But yet Keith Thurman is talking about it has to be percentages and it has to make sense business-wise and the money has to be right, and it's about business with Terrence Crawford. Amazing. And all of this time, Errol Spence was face-to-face with Keith Thurman, calling out Keith Thurman plenty of occasions. And Keith Thurman continued to tell Errol Spence, you're going to get your chance, young pup. You're going to get your opportunity. To the point where Errol Spence is all the way frustrated. And now today, Errol Spence says he doesn't like Keith Thurman as a person, feels like Keith Thurman is a fake. And he says he'll never fight Keith Thurman for all of the antics and all the ways he kept avoiding a fight, a massive fight that they could have had. So it's ironic that Keith Thurman is saying that, Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather preserved and cherry-picked their way at the top, but he's doing the exact same thing. Amazing. So let's see how this unfolds. Fight Terrence Crawford, Keith Thurman. We need to see that fight. You're saying that Canelo Alvarez, the fans want to see the best fight in the best. Well, we want to see you fight Terrence Crawford. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share the videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.